AI is everywhere. AI is omnipresent. The question is, which role does the human play here? And we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Marcus Fontoura.
Hello, Niels. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for taking the time. We get straight into the interview. You wrote the book which talks about human agency in a digital world. Most people at the moment think, okay, is this really about humans? Because everything we see at the moment is about how to make AI more efficient, how to make it more effective, how to maybe automatize things, or maybe even replace human beings, maybe not within their job, but maybe when they retire, not get someone new on board. So, what is your take on human agency in a digital world in the times we live today? Because you're a Microsoft technical fellow, so you know from the technical side what you're talking about. What's your take on that?
Well, I think we're in an unprecedented pivotal moment now, like because we've seen like technology and automation um, improve like what our efficiency over time, and we always been into this dilemma that like will technology like eliminate our jobs or not? And probably this is true since like the early dawn of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I think it's probably accelerated that feeling with like some of the news that we see daily and some of the talk about AI. However, my personal uh, opinion is that like we still need humans and we still very much need um, to engage more humans in solving like important problems for society. And I think this is more relevant today than ever. Like we have like lots of still open problems that we like to solve, like climate change, healthcare, distribution. Um, Computers cannot do that by themselves. They cannot really
Mm-hmm.
solve these problems by themselves. So, and Niels, if you take a parallel to chess, right? So the chess happen like it's a field that like AI disruption happened like 30 years ago. Like in 1997, IBM beat Kasparov, that was the
Yeah.
reigning world champion. And you think like, oh, then we don't have role for humans in chess anymore. But that's not true. Like chess grew in popularity, and today you have more people playing chess than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And and we can see that in chess, like when you have humans and computers together, we can achieve more and we can do more. The level of playing like really increase. So that's what we're gonna see in the other areas with AI now.
Mm, excellent. And in your book, you also talk about communication from extrasensory perception in information cascade. However, one of the chapters is also called Do Not Study. And I saw on your CV you have a PhD in computer science, so you definitely did study. What do you mean with that? What do you mean with do not study?
Well, I was just saying that like when you talk about with computers, language precision is very important. So like that was an anecdote when I was in grad school. We had a coffee shop like in my university building, and the sign there was do not study. And my advisor that was in formal methods, he was always saying like that sign is wrong. It should be spelled do not study here because like this is giving the wrong signal to students.
Yeah.
But that is a very important anecdote because you and I we have the context, right? So we know that do not study in that context means do not study here, but you still as a student are supposed to study. However, when you have computers, the it's very hard for computers to understand this whole context. Although
Mm-hmm.
like AI models are very smart, the AI model is equivalent of a computer program that read for 30,000 years, 8 hours a day, non-stop, and memorize everything, right? So we know a lot of things, but you still don't have like the human context that we have, and it's very hard to capture all that context. So that's what I try to convey in the book.
Mm, excellent. So when you now hear people who say, I am very afraid that AI is probably going to replace my job because I work in general admin, would you say they need to be scared of that? Or do you think it's something where no one needs to be frightened?
Well, I definitely think that AI is going to raise the bar, right? So we've seen like technology in general raise the bar, and we'll see new jobs being created by like for instance, like with the example of chess that I gave before. Now we have the popularization of chess coaches online, chess platforms. There is like there are influencers talking about chess in chess channels. So there is new jobs that were not present in 1997 when IBM beat Kasparov. So I think today, like we will see that like AI will probably automate away some jobs that are very mechanical, while like some other jobs will be created. And I think like we have a pretty good understanding what are those jobs, right? If you're in a profession that all you do is like mechanical tasks that can be solved by a computer, then you pretty much can consider yourself very susceptible for disruption. In the
Mm-hmm.
However, if you use your brains and you really need to analyze things and have a deeper understanding, understand the context as we were saying before, and compare and contrast like option A with option B, then it's much harder to automate that job, right? So I think what we'll see that the jobs will become more interesting because people will have more free time to think devote to these analytical skills and less time needed in these manual tasks that
Mm.
we see today.
Excellent. Which role do you think cloud computing is going to play here?
I think cloud computing is already playing a massive role, and people don't notice that because it's kind of like under the covers, right? But like all these AI models run on cloud systems, and they are only possible due to the vast amounts of digitized information that we have stored um, in the clouds and in the cloud systems that we have across the world. So without the advent of cloud computing and the internet, like we wouldn't have like this level of computational power that we have today, and the amount of information that we have today to train these very large models that we see.
Excellent. When we talk about all this AI and especially cloud computing, how do you think we're going to deal with the amount of energy we need to run this?
Yeah, if you look at the US today, about 2% of the energy, the power is for data centers. If you continue the trend, it will be about 9% by the end of the decade. So like it's kind of a fivefold increase, which is like
Mm,
huge. And this is very much driven by this idea that like we need bigger and bigger models, right? As we said before, right? Do not study is very different than do not study here. If you want to capture all these details and all these exceptions, you need more and more parameters. You need to read for longer, and you need to store more details, and those details are encoded in parameters in the model. So if you keep hearing that GPT-3 has that many parameters, GPT-4 has a larger number of parameters, this means that we capture more detail about the world. And the current bet, if you don't have any new innovation between now and the end of the decade, is that like to make progress, we need bigger models. And but I think like it's up in the air, right? Because there is research going on, and if you really find like better ways to represent knowledge, better ways of representing common sense, and representing that you know do not study here is different than do not study. That we know that birds can fly, but then it's very hard to capture all the exceptions, right? For instance, baby birds cannot fly, penguins cannot fly.
mm,
These are easy, but like then birds involved in oil cannot fly either, right? So if you think about the amount of exceptions, we need bigger and bigger models. Unless we come up with a new way of represent knowledge that is more efficient, like the trend for more power hungry data centers will keep pushing us that direction.
Excellent. And in your book, you also talk about the 40, 60, and 1090 decisions. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So in a company, when we are making decisions about which technology to invest, which systems to build, who to hire, and so on, I claim that there are two types of decisions. One that are more inconsequential, like I call this 60-40 or 40-60, like meaning that if you go the wrong way, like you could be 60% more efficient, but then you're just 40% more efficient. And we have like lots of those decisions that we make, and sometimes we over index on those. And I say that there are other types of decisions that are 90-10, and those are the ones that really, if you go one route, like it's really hard to reverse, right? Like for instance, like one classical example is like if Amazon decided to invest in Kindle, like then it has to build like a whole new division of hardware, building hardware, and that's like probably a very costly and hard to undo that decision. So I was framing in the book that like when we are making decisions about the future of technology and especially like what the impact of technology in society, we need to analyze, is this a reversible decision like a 40-60, or this is a decision that we really need to be mindful because we are in the 10-90 scenario.
Excellent. So another chapter is also about one thing which is probably now crucial, how to attract and keep the right people. So how, in your opinion, especially as you work for a world famous employer and with a PhD in computer science, you know how the competition is right now, especially around really competent talent. How do I know which are the right people to not only attract but also to keep them in my organization?
Yeah, and this is changing so much news as we're seeing like the production function changing and all that we talked so far with like more automation of the manual tasks. And we really need people now that like are willing to work hard, are willing to cope with change, right? They have this growth mindset because like probably the world in 1 year will be very different than the world today. So this adaptability, the will to work hard, the will to embrace change, and the will um, to want to build a better future is like what we are looking for when we are hiring people.
Excellent. And to wrap this interview up, and then I have one more bonus question after that. What do you think the role of quantum computing is going to be? Because most people say, yeah, there are these quantum computers and they are very fast. And that's usually what people know about that.
Yeah, and that's almost like an urban legend because quantum computers are not necessarily faster, right? They are in reality they are slower if you count a clock speed, you know, how fast a computer can process an instruction. Quantum computers would be typically much slower. If, however, quantum computing is very different than classical computing because the types of operations that we can do in quantum computing are different. Like in a because of quantum computers, we have this in quantum mechanics, we have superposition, right? So that either in classical computers, you have a bit can be either 0 or 1, and but in quantum computers, you have a probability of being 0, probability of being 1. So then actually what we have then is a vector of probabilities. And
Hmm.
because of this, we can represent a lot more states. So quantum computers are very good in representing problems that we need an exponential number of states. And these types of problems are normally like what we call NP hard problems or complexity in terms of complexity. They are hard to solve in classical computers, but they can more easily be solved in quantum computers. And a lots of problems in this space include like distribution, they include quantum mechanics itself, includes biology and so on. So quantum computers will not be a faster computer, but there'll be a computer that is very good in solving some very specific set of problems that are very important for us.
Yeah. Excellent. And when now people say, hey, I think Marcus can be really of help for us, either as a speaker or a consultant or in any other role, how can people actually get in touch with you?
I have my website, fontoura.org. I'm also very active in LinkedIn. And so these are the two primary forms.
Perfect. I think these are the perfect final words. Marcus Fontoura, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Niels. Was a pleasure being here. Thank you.